Alright guys, welcome back to another semester of elementary ear training with Professor Beerson. This is now Music 62. For this week's materials, we're going to cover dotted eighth notes with 16th notes in rhythm, and these are going to be in simple meter, meaning 2/4, 3/4, or 4/4. And then melodically, we're going to start reading from the C clef, otherwise known as the alto clef, tenor clef, soprano clef, but we'll be focusing on the alto clef for this week. And the melodies will feature scales and triad skips in the tonic and the dominant triads. Rhythm 1 is in 4/4 meter, and I always divide a 4/4 bar right down the middle. You see the arrow. After beat 2, I think of the measure separated, and beats 1 and 2 are the first half, and beats 3 and 4 are the second. You can see already in the first half of the first bar we have 8th and 16th notes elements, and we have a dotted 8th note with a 16th note. For the dotted 8th and 16th, we're going to say T key. So we hold the T for 3 16th note pulses, and then we say key for the last 16th note. So the first half measure is going to be T, T key. And the second half of that first measure, T, T. So there are no dots there. Okay. Next bar, we have the same elements as in the first bar. T key for the first half. And the second half of the bar is ta with an 8th rest, and then a pickup 8th note into the next measure. And you'll notice that that is now going to be forte. So we're going to raise our volume. That pickup 8th note, we say T, and it leads into the next bar, which has the same combination. T key. Now remember, we're still doing this forte now. We're singing loudly. Next half of the measure, T key. Okay, so we've got the dotted 8th plus a 16th, and then we've got 4 16th notes straight. Next line, same thing. Dotted 8th plus a 16th and 4 16th notes straight. So I'm going to say T key for that. Ta is the quarter note for the first part of the second half of the measure, in measure 4. And then I have an 8th rest, and then another pickup into the next bar. And this one is also an 8th note, just like the previous pickup, and we go back to the piano dynamic. T. Now the first element that we see here is the same one that we've seen in the previous measures. It's T key, using the dotted 8th note. The next one, T. And then the last measure, 4 16ths, and then a dotted 8th plus a 16th. T key. After that, we have our quarter note ta and a single 8th rest. Now you'll notice that that half measure is not complete. It needed one more 8th note to complete it. However, that extra 8th note is the pickup to the entire exercise. So we leave off the pickup beat if we have a pickup in an exercise. At the very last bar, we leave off that pickup beat. Okay, let's go ahead and perform this with conducting. We're going to set our metronomes to 72.
T tiki ta. T tiki ta. Tiki ta.
Great. Exercise 2 for the rhythms. Now my meter is 3/4. So this is simple triple meter. 3 beats, 3 quarter note beats per bar. I divide simple triple meter 2 beats plus 1 beat. So if we look at the first full measure, we're mezzo forte dynamic, and the first 2 beats is what I see as organizing the meter. There we have a quarter note and then a syncopated 16th note, 8th note pattern. So that's going to be ta, tiki, ki. The second unequal half of the measure is 1 beat only. So it's 2 beats plus 1 beat. And there I have 2 eighth notes. So I'm going to say ti, ti. That first bar all together will be ta, tiki, ki, ti, ti. Second measure is exactly the same thing. For the third measure, I have the opposite of the previous example with respect to the dotted eighth notes. Now we have the 16th note at the beginning of the beat and the dotted eighth note as the rest of the beat. So for that, we're going to say tiki, tiki. And then the third beat has the same thing, tiki. So we just extend the key for 3 16th notes after the first 16th note of each beat. Tiki, tiki, tiki. Next measure is a ta, quarter note, followed by a quarter rest. And then the second unequal half of the bar is actually the pickup to the next section, and that is in a piano dynamic with 2 eighth notes, T, T. The next section of the assignment begins, and we have T, T, tiki, ki, followed by tiki, ti. And then a literal repetition of that in the next bar. Going on to the next line in measure 7, we have our inverted dotted eighth note, so a 16th note plus a dotted eighth note, and we say tiki, tiki. And then for the third beat of the bar, we say tiki, ti, ta, rest. Now, the next section begins with a pickup, and we are back to a forte dynamic, and we use 2 eighth notes, just as the previous pickups have been. So we say ti, ti. Now here we have tiki, tiki, ki. This is going to be tricky. So this might be something that you drill. It means you practice it over and over again at a slow tempo, and then you build up the speed and reintegrate the segment back into the entire exercise. Notice that it's kind of similar to some of the previous elements that we had seen where you combined the 2 eighth notes plus a syncopated 16th note, 8th note pattern. Only this time now we have the 16th note dotted 8th note as the beginning and then the 16th 8th syncopation. So let's just go over how that sounds again. Tiki, tiki, ki. One more time. Tiki, tiki, ki. And then the third beat of the bar is tiki, ti, 2 16ths plus an 8th. Then we have a literal repetition of that. Let me just go ahead and do that because it's tricky. Tiki, tiki, ki, tiki, ti. And then we have 2 dotted 8th notes, but the inverted ones. So tiki, tiki, and then a 16th note, 8th note syncopation. Tiki, ki, ta, rest. Again, you'll notice that this final measure only has 2 beats, doesn't have 3 full beats, so it's not a complete measure. The rest of the measure is the beginning of the exercise, the pickup, 2 eighth notes. That's that third beat from this last measure. All right, let's set our metronomes to 104 and perform this assignment.
Ti ti ta, tiki ki ti ti ta, tiki ki ti ti, tiki 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 ta. Ti 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 tiki ki tiki ti, ti ti tiki ki tiki ti, tiki 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 ti ta. Ti ti tiki tiki ki tiki ti, tiki tiki ki tiki ti, tiki 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 ki ta.
Moving on to the melodic portion of the assignment, you can see that I have my C clef. And this is what is known as the alto clef because it is on the middle line of the staff. And when that happens, that indicates that the note middle C is now going to be read as the middle line of this C clef staff. You do not need to conduct when performing these. You can perform them freely without rhythm. Focus simply on the pitches and reading each note on the staff in the C clef, and also the different features of the melody. So, for example, the first 5 notes represent an ascending scale pattern, starting from middle C. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. And then coming from that sol, going down the next 4 notes, we have a tonic triad pattern. Sol, mi, do, sol. The next 4 notes represent a dominant triad pattern. Sol, re, ti, sol. And then the last portion is a descending scale. Do, ti, la, sol. And then it jumps up from sol to do for the ending. Let's go ahead and try it.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, mi, do, sol. Sol, re, ti, sol. Do, ti, la, sol, do.
All right, here is our first complete melody. It's the second melodic exercise, so I've written melody 2 here. On your handouts, it'll also say 2. But this is the first actual musical piece that has rhythms and a meter and a key signature. You'll notice that we're in 6/8 time, and we have 1 flat in the key signature, so this is how F major is represented on the alto clef or the C clef staff. We've got our tempo at 76, but we'll worry about that when we actually perform it. First, we're going to analyze. The way I like to analyze the melodies is by phrase. So you'll see that it typically lines up with the slur patterns. My first phrase is 2 measures long, and going up the scale pretty much. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, mi, do. Then down the tonic triad. Next 2 bars. Sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, re. Notice we've got sol, re. That's a dominant triad skip. Everything else is pretty much scale-wise. So the first part of this second phrase. Sol, fa, mi, fa, sol. Scale-wise, but it goes both descending and then ascending back from sol back up to sol. And then we leap down to re. The next phrase is in piano dynamic. Sol, 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 la, sol, fa, fa, fa. So we're going to make sure we sing that softly when we perform this. Then the next 2 measures. Mi, 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 fa, mi, re, re, re. And so you'll notice that these parts do not have any skips in them. These are all scale-wise. And in fact, we have some repeated notes followed by steps up and step down. And both of these 2 phrases here in the piano dynamic kind of represent a musical motive. That is, it's the same kind of idea being expressed, where you have kind of a single note being repeated, and then a step up, a return to that note, and then a step down to the next note, which is repeated. And if we put these 2 ideas together, we have sol, fa, mi, re. a structural long scale stepwise motion down from sol to re. Then from there we have the last two measure idea. Mezzo forte dynamic again. Sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, do. This time we have a jump from sol down to do. So that is a tonic triad skip, and it's a perfect fifth. Notice also that this motive is equivalent to this motive from the second phrase. Right? You start from sol, you descend down, and you descend back up to sol by scale, and then you leap. This time, however, instead of leaping to re, implying the dominant triad, you leap to do, implying the tonic triad. Okay, let's sing a scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Let's set our metronomes to 76 and let's perform it.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, mi, do, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, re, sol, 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 la, sol, fa, 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 mi, fa, mi, re, sol, fa, mi, fa, sol, do.
Okay, melody 3. It's the second complete piece of music in terms of the melodic exercises, but it's the third melodic exercise on the homework. We have 0 sharps and flats in the key signature, but one of the things that I can see right off the bat is that there are sharps. And if we figure out what note that is using the C clef, so this is middle C, C, B, A, G sharps. So we've got G sharps in here, a 0 sharp or flat key signature. So that leads me to believe that this particular exercise is in A minor. So when we say A minor, the first note we see as a C, we're going to sing that as me, as the third scale degree of A minor. So our first phrase has a repeat sign, so we're going to sing it twice. It's piano dynamic, and we are in 2/4 meter. Me, re, do, ti, ti, do, re, me, re, do, ti, ti, do, re, me. So you can see that this is completely stepwise. Me going through do down to ti, coming back up through do to me, and then we repeat that. The next phrase you can see is 3 measures long. It's a bit irregular. Both of these are 3 measures long, as a matter of fact. Starts off similarly, but it has some different features. So me, do, re, ti, do, rest. So again, kind of tracing a range between me and ti, but this one has a little bit more of a jagged contour, and it does feature leaps of a third. So me, and then we leap down to do, and that's considered a tonic skip. And then re, ti, another third from re down to ti, and that's considered a dominant skip. And then back to do. Okay, these next measures kind of go together, so I'm going to box them both off simultaneously. Me, fa, sol with a mezzo forte, crescendo, rest. And then the same thing happens, but we drop to pianissimo. Me, fa, sol, rest. Okay, so that's a really expressive moment. We have an idea that's exactly repeated, but it's varied by the dynamics. First time we crescendo into mezzo forte from piano, and the second time we just drop immediately down to pianissimo. It's like an echo effect. And then for the last part, we go back to our original piano dynamic. Sol, sol, fa, me, do, ti, do, rest. So you can see that this one features primarily stepwise motion. It's in A minor, and in the second phrase we have some tonic triad skips and some dominant triad skips, but not too much. And we're gonna now sing an A melodic minor scale to warm up. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, te, le, sol, fa, me, re, do. We will set our metronome to 95 beats per minute, and let's perform this.
Me, re, do, ti, ti, do, re, me, re, do, ti, ti, do, re, me, do, re, ti, do, me, fa, sol, me, fa, sol, sol, fa, me, re, do, ti, do,